All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Patriot Underground. Today is December 8th, 2025. Thank you so much for joining me, folks, to discover the truth beneath the surface. As always, I really do appreciate everybody out there taking the time to listen. And here we are, another Monday, which means it's time for a session with King of History himself, realnewsandhistory.com's own Mike King. How you doing tonight, brother?
Okay. How are you, Patriot? Hello, everyone.
Always great to see you, my friend. And it's hard to believe that we are in the final month of 2025. We're going to talk about a lot of interesting subjects tonight that I think everybody really wants to hear about. First and foremost, of course, is the Epstein files. So that's actually the first article we're going to take a look at. It's actually derived from a piece that Mike did a few days back on December 5th, I believe, that was entitled "The Epstein Files Just 2 Weeks Away." So we know that the deadline is rapidly approaching. I believe it's on the 19th, Mike, if I'm not mistaken. And so that gives us, 11 days left.
That's it.
And, the tension is obviously building, as that's really kind of the whole point here, right? And the New York Times is amplifying the pending release. We're going to get into that tonight. I actually mentioned last week that we're now at 90% of the public. I don't know if demanding is the right word, but 90% of the public is on board with the release of the information. Supports it. Yeah. And we want to get to that demanding part. That's really the main objective. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'd say personally, the smart money is on massive redactions, which is why we don't set expectations, because we anticipate the rug pull, but that's only going to serve to heighten the drama as we're going to break down for you folks tonight. But either way, this information is going to be revealed, and it seems like we're getting ever closer to that ever climactic moment. And it's hard not to develop those expectations. So we keep ourselves kind of like, at an arm's distance, so to speak. But either way, it's looking very promising at this point. So Mike's going to analyze in this piece the actual language in the Epstein Files Transparency Act itself, which makes some key points about how this could play out. What's implied in the text of the bill should serve as a positive indication for all of us who have been following this story for years. So that's going to be our first segment tonight. The second article delves into the white hat effort to spotlight the ongoing crisis in Europe being brought about by replacement migration. And this has obviously escalated over the past several years. Elon Musk has been very vocal on this issue, as we're going to talk about. And I believe it was yesterday or the day before, Trump released a 33-page document indicating that the United States is going to support the effort to elect patriotic candidates in Europe, make Europe great again, and do everything in its power to reverse this disastrous trend, which is unfolding really all throughout the Western world, but it's particularly bad in Europe. And this is a subject that we actually touched upon recently. We were talking about the Kalergi plan not too long ago, which was essentially to blend out the white race entirely. And tonight we're going to get into all the various different ways in which that strategy had been successfully executed really by the cabal. And we're going to get into how they really conceived of this whole plan to divide and conquer through balkanization. That was the objective of one of the main objectives of the post-World War II era. So that's the second piece. And then finally, in the historical segment, Mike is going to discuss the Newhouse media family, who, like the Sulzbergers, we talk about them very frequently on this show, have been quietly poisoning Western culture for decades, primarily by way of buying up newspapers and magazines to disperse culturally subversive propaganda. So we're going to put a spotlight on this family later in the episode, once again highlighting the cabal's agenda to take over the media in order to carry out their agenda to control the minds and to corrupt the moral character of we the people. And like I mentioned a moment ago, that was really accomplished with some pretty devastating success that's only just now beginning to be reversed in the era of the Q operation. So hopefully it'll be a great show. Just a reminder to everybody out there, if you're not already following my channel and Mike King's channel on Rumble, please do so. It only takes a second to create an account and hit that like button. You can also leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about tonight's episode. And of course, you can also participate in the chat. So make sure you hit that thumbs up button. or the heart button if you're watching on X. And let's just go ahead and dive in because we got a lot to cover, Mike. Let me go ahead and pull up our slides, and we're going to start out talking about Epstein. Here we go. Take it away.
Well, the story is really building up towards a dramatic climax, and I don't know if that climax will be in 10, 11 days, or if that's just going to be as a prelude to still another climax. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's not our timetable.
Right.
But clearly we see where this is going. And as I like to do, I have this interesting little habit. Every time I hear about a document or a speech or whatever that's in the news, or whether it's historical, I like to go and actually read the thing.
What a novel concept.
Yeah, amazed when you cultivate that habit. You'll be amazed at what you learn. So many times you read a summary, it's just incomplete or distorted. But I thought I should read the actual Epstein Transparency Act, which is HR, I forget the number, 300 something. But it's very short, sweet, concise. And what's interesting about it, well, there's a couple of things that are interesting. It is very comprehensive. It really doesn't leave any loophole for escape. Now, of course, we know this is all play acted drama. Right? That the DOJ is being forced to release the files, and Trump is being dragged, kicking and screaming with it. We know that's all play acted. But nonetheless, when you read the language, and it is not at all overly legalistic or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's clear, concise, brief, to the point.
Mm-hmm.
Something you might expect from a military writer, not so much a lawyer, right?
Was it Massey who drew this up? I think he was involved with that.
I think he's the chief sponsor, right? Yeah. Well, but it would be the Q operation that actually penned it.
Well, sure.
But it doesn't leave any room at all for weaseling out, as we expect. They still might try and do that. But this is not, in the long term, this is not going to permit it.
Right.
Covers everything. And we're going to read some of the relevant excerpts here, right from the horse's mouth. Section 1, this act may be cited as the Epstein Files Transparency Act. In general, not later than 30 days after the date of enactment, the Attorney General shall make publicly available in searchable and downloadable format all unclassified documents, records, communications, investigative materials in the possession of the DOJ, including the FBI and the United States Attorney's offices. And that would include SDNY, Southern District, New York. So that encompasses everything that relate to Jeffrey Epstein, including all investigations, prosecutions, or custodial matters. And number 2, Ghislaine Maxwell. And then it goes on to list everything that's in play: flight logs, travel records, including but not limited to manifests, itineraries, pilot records, customs or immigration documentation for any aircraft, vessel, or vehicle owned, operated, or used by Jeffrey Epstein or any related entity. Individuals, including government officials, named or referenced in connection with Epstein's criminal activities, civil settlements, immunity or plea agreements, or investigatory proceedings. Entities, corporate, nonprofit, academic, or governmental, with known or alleged ties to Epstein's trafficking or financial networks. Any immunity deals, non-prosecution agreements, plea bargains, sealed settlements involving Epstein or his associates. Internal DOJ communications, including emails, memos, meeting notes concerning decisions to charge or not to charge, investigate or decline to investigate Epstein or his associates. All communications, memoranda, directives, logs, metadata concerning destruction, deletion, alteration, misplacement, concealment of documents, recordings, etc., etc., etc. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's everything.
Yep.
Has got to be turned over by law. Even old stuff from plea agreements, everything.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you've heard about this, Mike, but I've seen this in a number of different articles that I read about Epstein, that apparently his estate is still in possession of evidence. Have you seen that?
No.
Okay, yeah, because I'll
But
see as we're going through this. I'll see if I can pull up
yeah,
an example. But I've come across that a couple of times, and that's been one of my questions: is how is it even possible at this stage of the game that his estate could still be in possession of
yeah.
certain evidence and not be compelled to turn that over? So that's one thing I was.
Well, that could be easily obtained by a subpoena. Maybe they're planning some more drama
Yeah, yeah,
in that respect that the estate is holding on. Yeah, but they have it all. So we'll have to see where that goes. Um,
yeah.
so let's see. It continues here.
Oh, hold on a second. I was just seeing if I could find it there. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So that's essentially what it says. Everything you can think of, they got to turn it over. Now, it also lists what prohibited grounds for withholding. You cannot withhold anything. No record shall be withheld, delayed, or redacted on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity, including any government official, public figure, or foreign dignitary. We don't care how big the people are, how embarrassing it is, you cannot withhold it because of that. Then it lists the withholdings which are permitted. And these are actually quite reasonable. The Attorney General may withhold or redact portions of records that A, contain personally identifiable information of the victims and their medical records, etc. We don't need the names of the victims if they don't want their names known. That's not important. B, that depict or contain child sexual abuse materials. We're not expecting to see child porn either. But what is interesting about this and kind of promising is that in listing it and mentioning child sexual abuse materials, the logical inference here, the insinuation is that it exists. So there's child porn in this stuff that's related to the island. So it doesn't mean that we're not going to learn about that. It just simply means
they're not going to put it out.
Show us kids being raped and tortured.
Of course, right.
C, would jeopardize an active federal investigation or ongoing prosecution. That makes perfect sense because now this suggests that they're still digging up stuff and investigating people. Now, by highlighted in red, the caveat here, provided that such withholding is narrowly tailored and temporary. So if they do redact names because it's an active investigation, that's only temporary. It's not a way out. It tells you right here. It's very narrow and temporary. So again, that's completely reasonable. Heck, if you're investigating someone, do you want to tip that person off? Right?
Right.
And D, depicts or contains images of death, physical abuse, or injury of any person. We don't need to see snuff porn of little children. But again, what is very, lack of a better word here, promising here, is that you read this between the lines, it is an acknowledgement that these people were involved in snuff, porn, murder, killing, raping children. Those are right there. Contains images of death, physical abuse, or injury. Also tells us in the Q posts that sort of stuff went on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So now the Q operation is writing this bill. Why would they put a line like this in here? That is a confirmation that this stuff occurred. And furthermore, this is something signed by the president. It suggests that we're going to learn about it. Not going to see the images. Who wants to see them anyway?
Well, yeah.
Maybe they'll make some sort of portal if people have got the stomach for it. They can on their own. But realistically, we're not going to see child being tortured and killed on TV. Right. But we're going to learn about it. But there it is, right in the act. Speaking of children being murdered, physically abused, snuff porn.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's pretty it's a pretty wide net that they cast right there. And you're right.
Yes,
I mean,
it certainly is. Yeah.
when I first read this, I mean, that was exactly my thought was, okay, it looks like they're wording this specifically to try to limit the amount of wiggle room. At least, again, we know this is all optics, but to prevent the loopholes. And the one, of course, that everybody is anticipating, myself included, is that because Pam Bondi, even it was like a day or two after at a press conference, and I think we actually showed it a couple of weeks ago, she said that there's new information that just came to light, that there are still ongoing investigations and so forth. So that's kind of the direction that I see it going, is that we're probably going to get a lot of redactions that, I mean, I guess in a sense, as you pointed out, some of them make sense, but then the other question is, well, what does it really mean by temporary? Like, is that's a word that could be interpreted in lots of different ways? Like, say, well, we have this investigation going on, and it's going to take however long it takes in order for us to conclude the investigation. So there's that. And then, of course, there's all the contradictory statements that we've heard from Bondi, from Cash, as far as, well, there is, remember initially she said there's like tens of thousands of videos, and then Cash came out and said, no, there's actually no videos. There's actually no list. And we've gone over all of this stuff, but it's going to be very interesting to see over the next several days how they actually intend to play this out. I mean, are we going to get another nothing burger, or is it going to be something a little bit more substantial this time? I mean, that's the thing, is like, we know the reasons behind it. We've analyzed the strategy of trying to build up all of that drama surrounding the event so that people will be ultimately demanding it. But my money, like I said, is on we're going to get some pretty heavy redactions, and probably not going to get all the information that we're looking for with this go around, but it's only going to serve to amplify all of that demand. Like you said.
That's what I'm expecting. I mean, I don't know how it's going to go. I mean, they could just drop a tsunami on us in 2 weeks. Who knows?
God, I hope so.
I think it'll be just more delays and redactions. But and again, it doesn't matter because this is all play acted. But even that, you have to interpret that in the context of the language of this bill, which says, you ain't getting away with that. So sooner or later, it's got to come out. This language is very clear. It essentially says the only thing that can be withheld in the long term are the images of children being murdered and tortured, etc. It doesn't say information pertaining to that. It says the images. So,
and there was also a part too. I'm not sure if I maybe missed it when you went over it, but I also heard that there was some language in there that stipulated that whatever the redactions are, there actually has to be that it has to be presented like, here's not who we're redacting, but basically the explanation of the rationale behind it is also going to have to be presented at the time. So should be interesting to see.
It'll be interesting. But we'll see. I don't think we're going to get it all, but that's okay. That'll just reactivate Marjorie, who's famous now.
Yeah, she sure is. She sure is. And yeah, by the way, I couldn't get this up on my computer, but I just want to touch upon this really quick because I did mention it. So I asked Grok, does Epstein's estate still retain certain evidence? And the answer I got, I'll just go ahead and read it. Yes, Jeffrey Epstein's estate continues to retain certain evidence as of today, December 8th. While the estate has cooperated extensively with congressional subpoenas and civil settlements, releasing tens of thousands of documents over the past year, some materials remain in its possession. This includes physical items, financial records, and other assets not yet fully disclosed or transferred. And then it goes on to say, the House Oversight Committee has subpoenaed and received multiple tranches of materials directly from the estate with public releases highlighting Epstein's network. And then it goes through that. But despite disclosures, the estate maintains control over undisclosed or partially redacted items, as confirmed in recent reports and legal filings. This would include physical and digital assets defined as hard drives, photos, videos, and other media from Epstein's properties in New York and Little St. James Island. July 2025 DOJ memo noted the FBI holds 300 plus gigabytes of similar data, but the estate retains originals or duplicates not yet subpoenaed. Some island evidence remains in estate custody pending further claims. And then as far as financial records, bank statements, transaction logs, and ledgers from accounts at JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank, which of course the House is actually trying to get a hold of all that information. That's a whole other can of worms they could open up. Let's see. And then it says personal items and correspondence, unreleased emails, notes, and artifacts, full unredacted contact books, masseuse lists or the black book. And then it's also saying victim-related material, some records tied to the Epstein victims' compensation fund, which paid out over $150 million in 2022, including settlement documents. Attorneys for victims raised alarms in November and a November letter about unredacted names and released files, suggesting the estate holds sensitive, unreleased victim evidence. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well, because I'm not really sure exactly how that's going to factor in at this point in time. But, we certainly know that we're looking at optics right now. And that's the thing we have to keep at the forefront here. So the NSA, the Attorney General, the FBI, they already have all this information. It's just a question of how they're going to reenact or how they're going to script it all out over the next several weeks. And, I have my doubts as to whether or not we're going to actually see that full release. I would love to be wrong, but experience has taught us up to this point that we really have to kind of expect that the rug pull is going to come. And then, one day when it doesn't, we'll all be jumping. Sure. But that would be one heck of a Christmas present, though, wouldn't it?
It would. But again, this is mainly for normies who are now just really starting to they're aware of it and they're getting interested in it. So if they pull the rug again, it's really going to amp up the tension and even a little bit of frustration.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting now that we're approaching the end of the year. I'm recalling some of the conversations that you and I had back in late January, early February, as Trump was getting inaugurated, and we were sort of anticipating, what are we likely to see over this coming year? And we pretty much both agreed that it might take a couple of months for the ball to get rolling. But you remember at the time we were kind of thinking, well, there's really nothing stopping the white hats. I mean, there doesn't seem to be any contradiction to Trump's agenda. Doesn't seem to be any reason for them to delay this any longer. And obviously, this year went the way that it did. So I guess my question to you is, how long do you really think that they can play this thing out, or they can continue to drag it out before they actually have to drop the hammer? I mean, it's a speculative question, but we are entering into it's like 2026, a very pivotal year, I would imagine, as far as this goes. I mean, you and I both agree that the climax has to come at a certain point in time.
Right.
And there's only so long that they can drag it out. We've also talked a little bit about the law of diminishing returns. Do you think we're kind of approaching that point, Mike, or what's your general take on it?
I think we are, but we have to remember, and maybe we didn't fully appreciate this at the beginning of the year, because back then I was just looking at it from a standpoint of resistance. There is none. So let's go. Let's kick down the door.
Yeah.
But now we clearly see that they want to do this in such a manner that you have virtually 100% unity.
Right.
Which requires getting normies up the learning curve. Now you cite that poll about 90%, so that means we're pretty much there.
Right. That's what I mean.
Maybe it's got to amp up the level of intense passion a little more. But this is all for them. Not so much to protect their feelings and guard them from shock anymore. I think it's just a case of getting them to the point where we were years ago of, come on, what's the holdup? Let's go.
Right.
it's always a good idea to kind of try to put yourself in the shoes of the average person who just now is really starting to become aware that, something doesn't smell right. Why can't they release these damn files?
Mhm.
And that's like universal now. Everybody's at least heard of that. So that's why it's taken so long, because when it happens, they want everybody on board.
Mhm.
They don't need everybody on board, but if you're looking to really build a new world and work together and end all of these divisions in society, this is important. They're looking ahead,
Yep.
because they've had the capability for several years now.
Yep.
Once the deep state was eradicated for the most part, and their media was neutralized, and their physical assets and their capabilities for violence was taken away, could have ended this 2 years ago, easily, 3 years ago.
Mhm.
But they want those proverbial hearts and minds, and that's going to take a while. But this polling data now is very, can't get much higher than 90%, right?
Well, yeah, that's really what I mean. I mean, if we were still hovering at 60%, or, even if it was a majority, but only a slight majority, you could say, all right, well, we're making steady progress here, but
Right.
we still need to get 80, 90%. That's always kind of been the
Right.
target number. And if we're there, and then we start to get more rug pulls into next year, then you kind of eventually you reach a crossroads where it's like you just have to go ahead and pull that trigger, because otherwise it gets, I mean, for us, we've been basically presenting the audience with what you just described as the basic rationale for how long this has had to drag out. But as you get more and more people, that consensus has been built at this point.
Well, look at what's been achieved in these last 11 months. The country has gone from perceiving Epstein Island, or a large chunk of the country, perceiving it as something that Trump may use to get revenge on his enemies. Well, that's no good. 2, well, Trump is the one behind the cover-up.
Right.
You know what I mean? So and it took that long to achieve that. But here we are. And also, let us not forget, Q's very first post about Jeffrey Epstein, and it was very damning and very comprehensive, was in November of 2017. Now, if you took a poll of the American public in 2017, forget about whether or not they support the release of the Epstein files. Ask them, have you ever heard of Jeffrey Epstein? In November 2017, what percent of the public even heard of him? 2%, 3%? News junkies?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And here you have Q at a time when nobody's heard of this guy, laying it all out. This is international espionage. These people worship Satan. Children are being murdered, raped, all in 2017. And it was clear already back then that this is like the whole foundation, the essence of the Q operation, at a time when nobody ever heard about it. And now here we are, we have universal knowledge of it, and 90% of the country wants it released. So that's like enormous progress.
Oh yeah.
And now it's really the left that is yelling the loudest for it. How cool is that?
Yeah. And that's something that we really didn't anticipate was going to be part of the strategy in the beginning of the year. And it's just yet another example. I mean, because that's what ends up happening with me. And I don't know if you go through the same processes, but we get to a certain point in the operation and you think to yourself, okay, well, looks like they've accomplished all of these different objectives. It looks like there's a clear path here.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, which we may not understand initially, they decide, okay, we're not going to do it just yet. And then we can go back, we can look at it with a new pair of eyes, and we can see the strategy behind it.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of I'm almost like putting myself in that frame of mind right now, thinking to myself, okay, well, it seems to me like the pathway has been cleared. We've got 90% of people on board. We've got universal acknowledgement. I mean, there's nobody who doesn't know about Epstein Island at this point. And there's nobody who's been untouched, or let's just say unexposed to all of this drama over the past year. So then I think to myself, okay, well, given what we said at the beginning of last year, now here we are in December, it kind of, I'm asking myself, gee, is there any other angle here that I haven't thought of, or any other reason why they would want to continue to play this out, short of basically just getting people literally like out in the streets with their pitchforks demanding this information? But it's almost
that could be.
Yeah. I mean, and then the other question, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying they could be playing to do something outrageous in spite of the wording of this act. Just give us more delays and a ton of redactions. And again, that's not something that should upset us. I mean, I'm happy either way. That they could start dropping bombs, or they could do something so outrageous that normies will be screaming, release these damn files. So
yeah, well, that's when I said about the crossroads before. I think what you just laid out pretty much describes what I was implying there, right?
Yeah.
Either you're going to have the bombs just get dropped, or they don't get dropped. And if that doesn't happen, then to me, it seems at that point, it's going to be, I would probably lean in the direction of, well, they're probably trying to show us that even with Trump's administration, you can't get to justice and the Justice Department, and maybe have that be some sort of a segue into perhaps building the narrative that we need military intervention. I mean, because that's been one of the big questions all along. Is all this information going to come out under the optics of where we're at? I mean, we know we're in continuity of government. We know we're under military control, but the vast majority of the public has no clue. Yeah. So is that where we're headed? Ultimately, are we going to see the bombs get dropped in the civilian system? Or is it just going to be, justice denied, judicial tyranny in whatever form it takes? We've already seen Pam Bondi and Kash Patel over the past year, extremely suspect. I mean, I know, well, I shouldn't say I know, but I very firmly believe that both of these individuals are white hats and they're playing their role. But if I had said to you at the beginning of last year that by the time we get to December, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel I don't think anybody would have anticipated that or believed that. So,
but it's always like that. It's only like after the fact, then you realize, nobody told me that they were going to have a fake Biden elected in 2020. I wasn't expecting that. And I remember how deflating that was. But, you look back, we had to have those fake 4 years. Absolutely needed it, But no, we're in the stretch. We're in the stretch. Yeah. And that stretch could be one month, could be 6 months. I don't know, but it's clear to me if all further delays now are going to be followed by activation of the Q left and the Q right screaming and building just more tension. Yeah. So just watch the movie.
Yep.
But there's no way this is quote unquote going away. In fact, it's interesting. If you Google the term Epstein not going away or Epstein files not going away, it's like you could tell it was the marketing team cooked this up. Just thousands and thousands of stories with the headline. It's not going away. The Epstein story is not going away. All the mainstream media keep saying that. Why is it not going away? It's because the mainstream media is keeping it from going away.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. And that's really where we've been hanging our hat on that this entire time, because that's the primary indicator that the white hats are in control.
Sure. If they wanted it to go away, just ignore it like you did for 30 years.
Right.
That's all. Just don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. Move on to the next story. No, it's not going away. It's so it's all good.
All good.
Just got to enjoy the show. Nothing we could do about the duration.
I know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and let me. Oh, did I pull the slides down? Yeah, I did. Hold on. Let me pull up the slides, and we'll segue here into our second piece, which is the Q plan to save Europe from white genocide.
There you go. Well, this is kind of follows up very well with the discussion we had last week about the sudden interest in the revival of General Francisco Franco-ism in Spain.
Yep.
And again, this is the Q operation for Europe. And this is worldwide. They're going to take out all the globalists and all the Marxists worldwide. And this article here is titled, Trump administration says Europe faces civilizational erasure. And it's about a report. This is an actual report with the president, with the White House seal on it and everything. It's a policy position paper. So, I mean, we know what Trump and Q's position has been regarding Europe. But now this is something actually in writing. It's kind of like an official document. It's United States official foreign policy is to see Europe saved, essentially. And that includes the promotion of anti-globalist right-wing parties. You see in this image, Trump is flanked by Viktor Orban of Hungary,
yep,
and Giorgia Meloni of Italy. And all throughout Europe, all of the so-called right-wing parties, these are like real right-wing parties, not the fake conservative parties of Europe's past. You know, that's how they used to play the game in Europe. I mean, they used to call Angela Merkel a conservative, right? It's a joke.
Yeah.
No, these people, they're all anti-global warming, stop migration. These are solid. These are people cut from the same cloth as America, make America great. Okay. And this is an official support of a paper that's, among other things, supports the resurgence of these right-wing parties. And it's every country now. They're gaining an influence and votes, cycle after cycle. And a lot of the extreme stuff that's going on in Europe is also manufactured, just like it is here. I mean, there's crazy enough stuff to begin with, but you see some of these migrant attacks, and I mean, they're enhancing it. They really are scaring the people of Europe and moving them rightward, which is a much more difficult task for Europe than it is for us, because we've always had a base. We've still always remained the center-right country. Europe, not so much after World War II, because they're on their ass.
Yep.
So the CIA could go in there, and all the money from the Marshall Plan could go in there. And they started buying up the politics, the domestic politics of the various European countries, particularly in the West. So they were more vulnerable. So they went leftward faster than the United States did. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And we talked about that in the contrast with Spain not getting involved in the war, kind of delayed that process a little bit because they weren't occupied. But no, they're definitely a lot farther along. And this has been one of the aspects of the operation, quite honestly, that's been there's a lot of gray area. Well, there's a lot of gray area in general, but certainly when it comes to the stuff that we're seeing play out over there in Europe, because on the one hand, I completely agree with you that they're enhancing it. They're manufacturing a lot of these situations in order to put a spotlight on what's going on over there. But on the other hand, it seems pretty hard to deny that they have massive hordes of Muslims that are literally just taking over their countries at the same, and and they're having like 10 kids per family, and at the same time, the white population, the native populations there are, it's a real existential threat that's going on there. So I see this as being a very real aspect of this war in terms of interpreting the events. Is so often we look at everything and we kind of go, oh yeah, it's just another psyop. But when you look over in Europe, you see a lot of that stuff go on, but there's no denying that this is a very real problem that's playing out there. So okay, let me go to the next panel here.
Okay. And this is from the article, again, Q York Times, every day, just presenting information with this historically unusual, neutral, and objective tone to it.
Yep.
The Trump administration said on Friday that Europe was facing the stark prospect of civilizational erasure and pledged that the United States would support like-minded patriotic parties across the continent to prevent a future in which certain NATO members will become majority non-European.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, he's stating the whites are being blended out of Europe, and we have to reverse that.
Yep.
The grim assessment of Europe's future was released as part of an annual update to the United States national security strategy around the world. So it's an update. This is actual policy now in writing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We want Europe to remain European, to regain its civilizational self-confidence, and to abandon its failed focus on regulatory suffocation, the 33-page document says. This is a frontal attack on the European Union, said Brando Benifei, an Italian member of the European Parliament. He calls the document totally unacceptable, full of extreme, shocking phrases, and said that some of his statements amounted to direct calls for election interference. So I don't know if he's a Q-left character or if he's a real character complaining. But either way, you could see this is a direct attack on the globalists of Europe.
Yep.
They want to tear down the European Union and let Europe breathe and become Europe again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only fitting, and it's only just because it was the United States, particularly the State Department and the CIA, that destroyed Europe to begin with. So, moral obligation to clean up the messes that we made.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely.
And again, conspicuous by its absence, we don't see the screaming and crying from all the left groups about this. This stuff just quietly goes by. There's never been anything like this. This is like written policy document saying that these are our objectives. And this is on the this comes on the heels of the new policy regarding South Africa and the whites in South Africa.
Yep.
You couldn't even talk about this stuff in years past. You'd be denounced as a racist and finished.
Yep.
Now it's normalized. And it's interesting. Elon Musk just posted a graphic about this is the new far right, and it shows everything skewed to like the vast majority of the population is now the new far right.
Yep.
And there's a large degree of truth to that, or it's in process. Because you could talk about this stuff openly. You couldn't. The moment you said, you start talking about demographics, that's it. You'd be shouted down by all in unison, the whole of the fake news and all of the self-anointed civil rights groups and the ACLU and the ADL. You couldn't have the discussion. Now it's done in the open. That's how much the climate has changed.
Yeah, no, it has. And it's, we've known for a long time that it's been open season on white people. I mean, you can say in the deep state lexicon, I mean, you can literally say anything you want about white people, but the minute you say something about any other group, you get that label attached to you. And the Overton window has absolutely shifted on that. And what's interesting is that they're still not attempting to hide it at all. I mean, we see how many headlines. I mean, there's like these big montages of all of these article headlines and magazines and so forth on the cover. How we need to get rid of white people, and it's a good thing. We've been absolutely bombarded with that even over the past year. So that would, to me, be an indication that the white hats are, again, they're just continuing to drive this home to make it a conversation, basically to force a conversation about this issue. That white people, it's like anybody else is allowed to have a culture, an identity, a nation, but white people are in a totally separate category. And now what we're starting to see with all of these demographics, all of these numbers, is that when you use the term a white genocide is taking place, that's not an exaggeration.
No. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily even have to be in the context of like in South Africa, the actual killing of farmers. They've carried out this genocide primarily by the use of fifth generation weapons. By attacking the fertility rates, attacking the culture, bombarding us with hordes of illegals, replacement migration, all of these types of things. But now this has become it's become a central topic. I mean, everybody has been exposed to it at this point. So,
and they've concealed this with the with the appeals to so-called tolerance and the attacks against any person questioning this, labeling them as quote unquote racist.
Right.
So that's been the methodology, but now it doesn't work anymore.
No, it doesn't.
But this is not by accident. Times don't change. I mean, there's reasons why things change. If we're permitted now to talk about this sort of stuff, and if the race card is no longer, there's a reason for it. It was deliberately and expertly deactivated by the White Hats. They didn't miss a trick.
That's true. Yep.
Nobody's afraid of being called racist anymore. It's like, shut up.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And
That's
so
fine.
what we're seeing here, again, just everything is like reverse. Everything that the Black Hats did over the course of many decades, centuries even, the White Hats in just the last 10 years have flipped it around.
Yep.
I wrote here, the hidden Black Hats who have been subverting the internal politics and demographics of post-war Europe have been replaced by hidden White Hats determined to guide Europe towards civilizational recovery. In both ways, it's unseen.
Yep.
It's just never understood, and that's just the way life goes in the affairs of nations. Things are always. Edward Bernays was right that we are governed by unseen men who are unseen behind the curtain. Rothschild said that. Bernays said that, but it also works on the other end when good guys do it. It's just the way it is. You can't just explain stuff to normies all the time. They won't understand it or put up a resistance. They do what they have to do. And so oftentimes, whether it's for good or for bad, the power is behind the scenes and they're cloaking it with a smokescreen to conceal what they're doing. And so this is exactly what the White Hats have done. There's a reason why these right-wing parties are surging in Europe. There's a reason why more and more people don't give a damn about being called racist anymore.
No, I mean, why would you? If your wives, your daughters are getting raped, and you've got these huge grooming gangs. I mean, if you're really facing an existential crisis, as they are in Europe, all that stuff just goes right out the window. Yeah. And it's been, I believe, a key objective of the White Hats to demonstrate throughout this entire process, but even more so over the past year, that Muslims, their culture is just simply not compatible with Western civilization. It's not as if these people can have any interest or even can integrate with the West. Their culture is just completely at odds with the Western lifestyle. So it raises some questions to me also in terms of, okay, we're going to make this, we're putting a spotlight on this issue. But up until this point, there hasn't really been, except from the people of Europe, there hasn't been any real discussion that I've heard on a political level of engaging in deporting these people. So, what are they going to do? They got millions and millions of these Muslims over there. At least we have a president, we have Tom Homan, and we've got this mass deportation agenda that's hopefully going to ramp up quite a bit. But we've already had, I think it was something like 6 million people have self-deported. And on top of that, I forgot what the exact number. I want to say it's somewhere around 500,000 that they deported this year, which is, we still have a long way to go. But the point is that the process is in motion. Whereas in Europe, it seems like it's getting worse on a daily basis. And so you're going to have that conversation at a certain point in time about getting all of these people out of there.
Well, even more importantly, and probably even more difficult, is the absolute necessity of increasing the birth rates. I mean, skyrocketing the birth rates.
Yeah. Big time.
If Native Europeans, white Europeans, if women start having 2.5, 3 children per woman, this problem will solve itself. That's probably the most challenging problem is the decline in the birth rates. Europe has had below replacement level birth rates now for probably close to 30 years.
That's right.
And that's something that is cultural. It's something that has to absolutely change because, without that, they'll disappear on their own without immigration.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
And that's one of the arguments for all the third world immigration. Look, the population is aging. Well, who's going to replace and take these jobs? So the two go hand in hand. So, I mean, we'll have to see what happens. But I've said this many times that if you're talking about rebuilding the world, okay, we can eliminate the deep state, kill every last one of those sons of bitches. I'm all for it. But in terms of the great recovery, there's got to be a spiritual component.
Oh, absolutely.
We have to get back to normalcy. You know, normalcy means people get married and have 2, 3, 4 kids.
Yep.
That's normal.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was with everybody on my block when I grew up.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now now they have dogs instead.
Well, you know, even
one step at a time. One step at a time. At least now we have an awareness. We have a written commitment. We'll see what happens. But there has to be a cultural, spiritual solution to this.
Yeah.
And it can't just be, you know, we're going to give bonuses. If you have babies, you're going to get a nice tax cut. I mean, that's all well and good. That adds to the mix. But it's the mentality that's got to change. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that government can only go so far in terms of inspiring people or incentivizing people to have kids. We saw Trump actually with the, what is it? The $1,000 for every newborn. And then there's, they're basically going to be building a nest egg for all these newborn kids. So by the time they come of age, they'll have a couple $100,000 in the bank. They'll have a nice head start in life. And that indeed, I mean, and that's here, by the way, not Europe. But that's a great start. That's a good way to incentivize people who might, be a little bit concerned. Well, I don't know if I want to have kids because I'm not sure if I can take care of them financially. But what we're talking about here is something that goes much deeper in terms of just lifestyle. I mean, it seems as if even for my generation, I mean, you're older than I am. Even for my generation, I've seen a pretty significant drop off just in terms of people that I grew up with. It's about 50-50 people who got married, had kids, etc. And then I have a bunch of other friends who are literally like in their 40s and they're bachelors and they have no interest in having kids, no interest in having a family. And for me, it's always kind of baffled me a little bit. And I don't mean this in a judgmental way about anybody because these people are my friends, but at the same time, how do we get there? How do you change people's mentality? And it's like when World War II ended, they all came home and there was this massive baby boom. I mean, you didn't have to encourage anybody to have kids, have a family, all of this stuff. Even in the wake of this, after all of the disclosure, after everything comes out, I guess my best guess is that there's going to have to be some sort of a spiritual revival that's based on all of that ugliness that people are exposed to, that then turns them back to God. And then eventually people will once again embrace that. But there's only so far that the government can go in terms of fixing that problem. It really is it's a spiritual one.
No, absolutely. It's kind of sad. I joked about it. I had that event down in Mar-a-Lago. I said, wow, that was cool. I got to wear a black suit for something other than a funeral. I can't remember the last wedding I went to or christening. It's, I got nieces, sons, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. It's easier said than done, but at least it's been said.
That's true. Yeah. That's the first step is
identifying. Before you couldn't say this stuff. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's not too long ago. I mean, I'm a little older than you, like she said. You got to rub it in. But Pat Buchanan was talking about this. David Duke was talking about this sort of stuff like this.
Yeah.
They were crucified. It's not too long ago, 20, 25 years ago. And now it's a serious discussion. So that is a start. You have to begin with the word. So let's see what happens. Yeah.
And you also have to have an environment where people feel like if they're going to bring kids into the world, that it's going to be safe, that they're going to have a future. And that's a huge obstacle as well. So I think in terms of,
I was just going to say it was easy for Hitler to get the birth rates back up rapidly in the wake of Germany's economic destruction. However, people in those days, they had the mentality, they want kids, they want family.
Mm-hmm.
They were just starving. They couldn't have them.
Mhm.
Today, it's different. The mentality is they really don't want it.
What do you think?
And that's not normal.
Well,
Yeah.
what do you think has been the main drivers behind that?
Well, I think there's several. I think prosperity, ironically, paradoxically, has a lot to do with it, in a way.
Breeds
Sometimes
narcissism.
when there's too much prosperity and luxury and good times to be had, there is that paradox. You do see a drop off sometimes in birth rates, and the country getting more prosperous. And I don't mean that prosperity is bad, but sometimes it's a form of decadence where you just want too much materialism and you just want more stuff and more fun, So that's part of it.
They've also
this business of driving all young women into careerism. I mean, I think it's a good idea for a young lady to have a trade, a skill, something she could do. So she's not totally real. Because what do you do if you don't find a man, right? So I don't think that's a bad idea. But It just seems too many of the young women are consumed with, I want to go out and have my career. And then you wake up one day and you're in your 30s and you ain't got it, you're not even married, So that's part of it. There's the blurring of the sexual lines. I think in many ways, this feminism thing has, in a general sense, made too many women too masculine and too many men too feminine. And I think the sexes become incompatible after a while because it's the opposites that attract and complement each other.
Yep.
So it's a lot of deep social stuff with the feminism and the sexual revolution. It all comes back to it's a form of moral decadence, and I'm not passing judgment on someone who's not married or doesn't want kids, but it's just not normal to grow up that way and say, "Oh, I never want to get married. I never want to have kids." If it turns out that way, fine, you make the most of it.
Right.
But it just seems to me that's the prevailing attitude, and that stems from it's a form of like moral decline.
Yep.
And again, you get back to the solutions to this thing has to in some way be spiritual and moral. So, and maybe that's what will grow out of the horrors that we're all waiting to see exposed.
Yeah.
I
agree. I think modern society, especially with over the past 20 years with social media and the internet, it's obviously had its benefits. I mean, heck, we wouldn't be having this conversation without it. We've even talked about how the White Hats always intended that the internet was going to be a massive tool in the Great Awakening. But the flip side of that is it's also gotten people to become so self-centered and narcissistic.
Yeah.
To a point where they just don't have, it's almost like the natural instinct of a man and a woman. It's like coded into our DNA at a certain point in life to form this union and to bring beautiful children into the world and to have that be the focal point of your existence. That's been so skewed over the past couple of decades. I don't know if you've probably seen that meme where there's like this, this beautiful young wife, and she's in the kitchen and she's like, she's making dinner or something like that. And she's got like one kid in each arm, these beautiful young children. And she's got her husband behind her, giving her a kiss. And it says, imagine how much money and effort went into to propagate to believe that this is a form of oppression.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's exactly what they've done. They've been able to warp the mindset to such an extent where, I mean, women, especially in America, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we didn't have our problems and so forth. That goes without saying, but they were treated like royalty in past generations. And the men went out there and they took on the world and they were the providers and so forth. But this has always been the natural design. And we've gotten so far away from that. And I think there's also that element too of just constant propagandizing by the media, by Hollywood. And what I find fascinating about it is that like you just described, these women who are just focused on their careers, and all of this stuff, and then they wake up one day, they're in their mid-30s, and they realize how unhappy they are, but they don't connect the dots and realize like the reasons that they're not unhappy is because they haven't embraced the natural cycle of life, the way that it's all been designed. So,
well, going back to the founding of the Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt and later on Karl Marx, they openly spoke about the destruction of the family.
Yeah, right.
And the so-called emancipation of women. That's what the emancipation of women is all about. And of course, like all the other left things, they'll take something legitimate. Like for example, I mean, back in the day, if a woman was stuck with an absolute asshole of a husband, she had to put up with it all her life, and then society would judge her so poorly. So in some ways, you had that element of women who were suffering. They needed to be emancipated. But what the left always does, whether it's women's rights or civil rights or environment or labor, they'll take something that's got a kernel of truth and legitimacy to it, and then just go in a different direction with it.
Yep.
So, the argument about women or blacks being treated like shit and it needs to be has a little legitimacy at first, but then they redirect it to waging war against the white man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're very good at that.
Feminism was their creation, totally.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's true. And we've also got a mass mental health crisis. Let's not forget. I mean, it's like you think to yourself, wow, we got to get back to the nuclear family and, 2.5 kids. And then you're just constantly seeing videos on social media of people who identify as dogs. And they're like, and you just think to yourself, my goodness, I mean, we've really fallen here, but hope springs eternal. And indeed, I think that the white hats had to have had, I mean, certainly they understand the problem as we've just outlined, and we're in the process of doing, but they have to have some sort of a, I guess you could say, a way to kind of predict how all of this is going to affect people. Once everybody's exposed to the truth, that it's going to, maybe not overnight. It's not like, the Epstein files are going to come out and everyone's going to go jump in bed and have 3 kids the next day. I mean, that's not what we're talking about here, but eventually that there's going to be that, that spiritual shift that occurs surrounding this, because, I've said it before many times. I mean, in the absence of, and this is part of the reason why there's so much frustration, because in the absence of truth, society only grows sicker. And that's really, I think, part of it's really the central issue is that the truth, we've been lied to about so many different things. And the end result of that is people get mentally ill. They get narcissistic. All the things that we've seen develop, that's usually what ends up happening. Whereas that's the way I look at it, is the truth is the only antidote to all of these problems societally that we have. It's the only way to sort everything out and straighten everything out, is to untie that knot and to just show people what they've been lied to about, so that they can genuinely reevaluate their lives, reevaluate their priorities. So, that's part of the reason why I've just been, banging the table all this time, being like, we need full disclosure. We need to get the full truth, because if we don't, I just don't see any way that society is going to be able to recover and get back to the way it used to be, in terms of, the family unit, having kids and all that stuff. So,
this all has the potential to be transformative. Get back to making good movies, good music, clean up the culture,
and see the benefits downstream.
It could be a really powerful bounce if all of this stuff comes out. And just based, on what we talked about earlier, it just seems like it is going to all come out. I can't see any conceivable reason why they would build up such tension and drama to have a dud of a climax to the movie. Doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
Yeah. So one thing at a time, but you got to hit rock bottom. Society as a whole has to hit rock bottom. And that's what Epstein and everything that can flow out of it can do. So
it's kind of like
just like physics. The bigger the crash, the bigger the bounce back, right?
There you go. Yeah. It's like, there's an intervention that needs to take place in society. But the only thing that's going to really be effective is telling everybody the truth. Like this is the way the world really works. This is what's really been going on. These are the people that you thought were such wonderful people that you idolized and you put up on a pedestal. It's the only way that people are going to reevaluate all of these things. So let's hope and pray that that's the direction we're going, because it goes much deeper than just us wanting vindication. I mean, that's a part of it. Of course, we all want to be vindicated, but at an even deeper level, I think what people really are craving is that healing of society, you know, on a personal level, and really, you know, on a societal level, to just see the world actually make sense again, you know? I think that's really what's driving so much of the anger and the frustration at this point. So, yeah, that's that full disclosure. It just, you know, you can't stress that enough, but okay. So Elon.
And coincidentally, and I say that with extreme sarcasm.
Coincidentally,
Elon Musk, in conjunction with this new national security strategy, which is an attack on the EU, he starts tweeting against the EU. How long before the EU is gone? Abolish the EU. There's a lot more hardcore.
Oh yeah.
So much for that Trump-Musk split. Remember that one? They broke up. Now they're mirroring each other again.
Yep. We're gonna see. It's gonna be interesting to see if Marjorie Taylor Greene and Trump can make up at a certain point.
Oh yeah, absolutely they will. And by the way, do you know Elon Musk is up to nearly 250 million with a B followers on Twitter worldwide? It's a one-man megaphone.
Oh yeah,
you won't believe. Okay,
and he's been posting about this like almost exclusively about this issue. I've noticed for the past several days.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been consistent for a while now, but over the past several days,
it kicked off with the news of this new national security strategy. So there's no question it's coordinated. So yeah, there's hope. There's hope for Europe. A lot of work to be done. It's easier said than done, but there's no question that you know, at the very least, this pillar of the New World Order, this globalism, the European Union, which is why both world wars were fought, by the way, is falling. Is gone. Okay.
And when he's telling you, when he's posting this stuff, how long before the EU is gone, I think you'd probably agree with me, Mike, that it's already a foregone conclusion, just like NATO. You know, whether or not this has actually been formally hashed out and we're literally just watching the play acting in Europe, I don't know. That's a more difficult question, as I kind of indicated before. But this tells you the direction that we're going. If Elon is posting this, it's basically like Q telling you, well, yeah, the EU is going to be gone, just like the Democratic Party is going to cease to.
Yeah, like Q likes to use the prefix "what if."
What if, right?
Which should be read as a statement.
Exactly.
So how long before the EU is gone? The EU is gone.
Yep. Yeah, he posted. Europe is, and this was in your article. Europe is sleepwalking into oblivion. He also posted. What was it? He said something along the lines of the members of a nation must have a common culture, or it's not a nation. I mean, just, you know, he's been saying this. He's been pounding this drum for a while now. So it'd be interesting to see what the next.
You talk about that when we talk about that normalization process that we spoke about earlier. This is a big part of it, because this remains such an esteemed figure, a great man of business and science. It's not him, but his persona was so big, and they're putting it to such good use here. Because if Elon Musk could talk like this, then ordinary citizen could talk like this.
That's right.
If Bill Gates could say climate change is not a problem anymore, now your ordinary citizen has been given permission to say that. It's socially, intellectually permissible to say these things. This is the 5th generation warfare. This is the essence of it right here.
Yep.
You couldn't question the EU years ago. What do you know, or the Fed or the IRS? Everything now is falling apart. So,
Well, it's pretty amazing.
I had another panel on that one. I think I had
Did
a
you?
couple more. Yeah, I wanted. Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. I
I
thought
want
that.
to tie this into World War II
Yeah. Here we go. Sorry
and
about
World War One. The objectives of the World Wars and aftermath. This will help you better appreciate just how huge this is. This is enormous historical, transformative significance here. The objectives of the world wars and the aftermath. Very simple. Forget about what you learn in the history books or the History Channel. This is what both world wars were about. I call them World War Part One and World War Part Two. It's a more accurate descriptor. One, absorb the nation states of Europe into a regional government on the way to a world government. Two, blend out the white race entirely through a combination of below replacement birth rates, feminism, third world migration, and the moralistic encouragement of race mixing. They actually funded ad campaigns in some of the European countries saying, date the migrants, stuff like that. It just,
Yep.
and they would make the women feel as if they were somehow being mean or nasty if they preferred their own kind. So this is part of the ongoing psychological warfare.
Yep.
But this is the agenda of the New World Order right here. These two elements right here describe the whole program, and you could fit into all of this the reasons for World War I and World War II. Look what came out of them. League of Nations, parliamentary democracy, NATO, EU, right? All of this nonsense.
Yep.
So the idea that it's being overturned now, after all these decades and all this effort and all this bloodshed, it shows you what historic times we're living in.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, it was all about basically providing in the aftermath of the war, the infrastructure, if you will, of all these major nodes of power within their New World Order system, like you just talked about, NATO, UN, EU, etc. I mean, the EU took a little longer to form, but it was that. But the second one too. I mean, that doesn't really get talked about a lot, but indeed, that was the entire. That was the reason that they went to war with Hitler, because that's exactly what Hitler was trying to prevent from happening, right?
Yeah.
Through all this moral degradation and so forth. But yeah, this is exactly.
Yep.
They
the two world wars were like two shots at a battering ram.
Yep.
The castle door. First one didn't quite get it, but it certainly loosened up the locking mechanism, and the second one busted the door down.
Yep.
And although the EU was not technically formed until 1992, its roots, and you can read this right on the EU's own web pages, they're proud of it, lie in the establishment of a committee during the Marshall Plan. So we flooded Europe with all this money. We're going to help you get back on your feet. And oh, by the way, we've got some political stuff embedded in here. And that's where the seeds of the later became the Benelux nations, Belgium, Luxembourg, Netherlands, formed a trade agreement, and then it expanded and expanded. But it was all in the paperwork of the Marshall Plan.
Yeah.
So they had that agenda, long-term agenda, and they executed it step by step flawlessly. Now, I close this piece out with some receipts to leave no doubt whatsoever that what I just wrote there is the absolute truth about the two world wars and the New World Order agenda. This is the infamous Count Kalergi, the Austrian, who had to flee Austria after Austria voluntarily merged with Germany. Hitler referred to him as that cosmopolitan bastard. But he's considered one of the founding fathers of the EU. And he won the first Charlemagne Prize, which is erroneously referred to as the Kalergi Prize because he was the first winner. But it's the Charlemagne Prize. It's basically Globalist of the Year award. All right, Kissinger, Merkel, Macron, those kind of characters. Yep. They win the Charlemagne Prize.
Yep.
And he wrote in his 1924 book, Practical Idealism, the man of the future will be of mixed race. The races and classes of today will gradually disappear due to the elimination of space, time, and prejudice. No, it's due to the deliberate machinations of you and your crowd. He tries to make it seem like something natural and organic. The Eurasian Negroid race of the future, similar in appearance to the ancient Egyptians, will replace the diversity of peoples with the diversity of individuals. And in another writing, he openly thanks Bernard Baruch, the Warburg brothers, and Baron Louis de Rothschild for supporting his work. Openly admits it.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a front man for the Jewish cabal, whose intention was blend out the white race of Europe, destroy them.
Now, this guy wasn't actually Jewish, right? Kalergi?
No, Kalergi was actually his mother was Japanese, his father was Austrian.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I can kind of see that a little bit in his speech there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was like the leading intellectual of his day, promoting this single European vision, etc. He wrote the book. So this isn't some nobody just making this is a very significant figure, all the more so because he, in his own words, acknowledges who his paymasters were. Yep. Baruch, Warburg, Rothschild.
And it's amazing, too, if you go and you look up the Kalergi plan, it'll tell you, naturally, it'll tell you it's a conspiracy theory and all these things have been taken out of context.
Yeah.
But then you look at a quote like that and it's like, where exactly is where's the room for disagreement here? I mean, he's literally telling you, the only thing he doesn't come out and say is white people.
Right.
But it's right in front of your face. I mean, he's literally telling you.
He wrote these words in 1924 when the non-white population of Europe would probably be 0.5%.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So what did you see coming that the rest of the world didn't see?
Exactly.
Right.
And the elimination of space, time. What does that even mean? The elimination of space, time, and prejudice. Yeah. I'm not even sure what the heck he's talking about there.
Well, the elimination of space, that's the eradication of borders. It's telling you right there, right?
Okay, well that's a little bit different from the elimination of space, but in code, I guess that's essentially it. Yeah. But it's crazy. Did you actually see the post that Elon put out that Jews are white? Did you see that one?
No.
Yeah, he put out a post, or I think he might have. It was either a post that he wrote, or it could have been something that he was responding to. But he said something along the lines of Jewish people are white, if not peak white. And it got like a whole bunch. I mean, you can imagine what the comments look like. And I found that was kind of interesting, given the fact that, now here we are talking about a white genocide and all of these sorts of things, but you've still got Elon saying, and it's actually an interesting question too, because when I was growing up, I didn't think of Jewish people as a separate race.
Yeah.
Like I always just assumed like race was based upon skin color.
Yeah.
But can you speak to that a little bit, Mike, about,
Well, a true Jewish supremacist or separatist who sees himself as separate doesn't call himself white. And many of them will openly say that we're not white. And indeed, if we define white as a skin tone, lots of people could qualify as white. But racially speaking, it's an admixture of Central Asian and white.
So there is definitely some white in there for sure.
Well, yeah, there's a high degree of it's like an Aryan Central Asian mix, most of them. But there were also converts in like Northern Africa, and then you have the original ones throughout. So it's not a clearly delineated line.
Yeah, I always thought of it as like
in a cultural sense. If we define white as the indigenous peoples of the European nations, you really couldn't consider them white unless they were like. There would be people sometimes in Spain or Italy or Germany who would convert. So it's not really easily and totally comprehensively defined as a religion. You can be an atheist and you're still a Jew, right?
Well, that's where it gets a little bit interesting.
Right. And it's not, you can't define it strictly as a race either. Some of them are as white looking as anybody, and then some of them have that kind of Central Asian characteristic,
right?
Nose and everything.
Yeah, right.
But generally speaking, for purposes of when we talk about Europe and white people, it's the people whose ethnicity derives from the various countries of Europe. And then when you go into like Southern Europe, like Southern Italy and parts of Greece or even Eastern Europe, there's mixture there as well. Because back in the day, the Arabs passed through Southern Europe, right? And then your Huns and your Mongols made it to Eastern Europe. You can see sometimes Eastern European have a little bit of Asiatic features. So sometimes it's a little complicated. But certainly like Northwestern Europe, your Germans, your Dutch, Northern France, Northern Italy, England, Scandinavia. I mean, that's like pure white, And then there's varying degrees thereof.
Yeah.
So
interesting. Yeah. Very
interesting. What's interesting is those particular whites, they have a special animosity towards. That's where dumb blonde jokes come from, I believe. Blonde, blue eyes, they really hate that. Oh, they hate that.
And you think that just comes from the history there, just with the Romans and so forth? I mean, where do you think that comes from? That animosity.
I frankly think, and I'm not a pure Nordic by any stretch, but I think there's a high degree of envy and jealousy for the tall, blonde, blue-eyed people. Simply aesthetically, it's like, okay, you're better looking than me or whatever. For some people that triggers an insecurity. I that's a part of it.
Yeah.
There does seem to be a special animosity towards that Nordic type, the tall, the blonde.
Well, it's interesting to me is like we know that the cabal itself didn't have the best interest of any group of people in mind. I mean, at the end, they wanted to basically kill off everybody.
Yeah.
But they made it their mission to target specifically the white race.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a competition factor as well. Because let's be frank, it's out of the European people that so much an inordinate amount of the world genius and invention and creativity came out of. I think these cabal characters figured we need to put them out of business, genetically speaking, and then there'll be no obstacle to us ruling over a mixed race planet.
Yeah, I mean that's the only thing that really makes sense, right? Why would you target the white people if they weren't the number one threat to whatever it is that you were trying to pull off?
Yeah, it is. You really get into it. It's kind of deep. There's clear, convincing evidence of white Aryan people, tall, blonde, red hair, blonde hair, civilizations in South America, North America, in the interior of China, all over the world. And we're talking way back, even before the Egyptians. And there is also evidence that they were hunted out of existence by other natives. So there's just this, you build a civilization with a lot of nice stuff, and you perhaps you trigger a certain degree of envy in other neighboring peoples who want your shit and will kill you for it. Yep. But this is an undeniable forensic reality. It's forensic. I mean, it's easily provable. These white civilizations existed throughout the world, and they were constantly attacked.
Yeah, I remember you did a piece on one of those. I don't know if we covered it on our show. This sounds very familiar. Like it was. I can't remember the context or what country, but it was basically what you were describing. That this civilizations of people that aren't even formally recognized in the history books as even ever existing.
Well, they cover that up because you start to get into it, and I don't say this as a white pride #1 type of. I'm not saying that in that context. I'm just looking at the reality of it. But I think that triggers a lot of people, triggers a certain sense of insecurity. And if you begin to talk about it, it smacks of so-called white supremacy. So let's bury it. We shouldn't bury the truth. I mean, I want to know what's up with 6 foot 6 inch blonde-haired mummies in the interior of China. What is up with that? Can someone explain that to me?
I'd love to know.
Pyramids covered up by bushes now. They look like mountains, but they're pyramids far into the interior of China. South America. I mean, it's freaky stuff going on, and we're not allowed to talk about it. I just think because people are so sensitive about it, because it just leads you to the idea that maybe all civilizations on Earth had their origin with these people all over the globe, these white races of people. And I include in that even China and Japan. It's even in their folklore, ancient white peoples. So, you know, it's understandable the Chinese don't want that to be known.
Well, and it fits in with everything else that they've done in terms of brainwashing us. That, like I mentioned before, we're not allowed to be. I mean, you even say white pride, and that immediately has the context of, you know, hating everybody else and so forth. But the reality is that there are a lot of reasons that people should be proud to be white. Right?
Well, I don't like to use the term pride, because pride is actually a sin. And if you didn't invent anything yourself, you're just piggybacking on other people. I prefer the concept of saying, you know, there's nothing wrong with white identity. You identify this is your group, which is a biological extension of your family. There's nothing wrong with having a sense of belonging, identity, and even preference to be with than your own kind. Okay? That doesn't mean you hate other people.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. I don't think
that's how they spin it. They spin it because this is how they make war against white people.
Right.
Make you feel so guilt-ridden you can't even speak the truth. Even as they're waging war to kill you, you're not allowed to defend yourself. Oh, I'm so terrible. I'm white.
You know? Well, don't you see the irony though? It's like everyone else can be proud of who they are. I mean, you know, I get pride is a sin in a certain context, but not if you're, you know, if you're proud of your country, you know, if you're proud of your family, if you're proud of your kids, that's not a sin, right? It's okay to have a sense of pride, but they've taken that. And by the way, I mean, you can say black pride, you can say, you know, any other group can be proud of who they are. I mean, and the Jews, you know, will tell you that they're the chosen, people, right? So everybody else has the natural, like it's carved out in their identity. They can be proud of who they are, but not white people. And that's, you know, it's kind of like, I know we talked about Nick Fuentes recently, but you know, a controversial character like him being plugged in and activated in this whole process, even though he says things that, you know, even you and I are kind of like, whoa, but it sort of makes sense when you think about it. How do you get people to once again actually feel like it's permissible to talk about having a national identity and not wanting the country to be a majority non-white, right? To actually preserving our culture. I mean, sometimes it takes a battering ram like that to break down these walls and to normalize these conversations.
Well, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You need people at every point in the line, because there's different tactics that work for different people.
Right.
And you have somebody with a sledgehammer busting all of these taboos. It's not necessarily a bad thing, you know?
Right. Exactly. I mean, a lot of the stuff that he says, I'm just like, well, I can't get on board with that anyway. But I interpret just about everything now through the lens of who I believe are the operators that are working as a part of this plan. So, all right.
Now, I've got a couple other quotes for which I also sent you video clips. I think it's even better if we just don't read it. Let's hear it right from the horse's mouth. There's Winston Churchill, a prime instigator of both World War I and II. People forget that he was Lord of the British Admiralty when World War I broke out, and he was all gung-ho.
Oh, sorry.
It's a very important, powerful position. So he's a principal culprit for both world wars. As an operative, of course, there's higher powers wanted the wars.
All right, let me go ahead.
He's another one. He's Bernard Baruch's bitch. We've talked about that. So he's another, yeah.
Bernard Brooks' bitch. Yep, he certainly was. All right, let me pull this up here and let's take a look.
Let's hear what Churchill has to say about regionalism and world government. Yeah, you see how they talk when they're amongst themselves, these globalist muckety mucks?
Yep.
Yeah, world government. Okay. But to us, the public, that's conspiracy theory. You're not supposed to say those things.
That's right.
So, but that's it. The prime instigator of both world wars telling you right there, world government. And that's what came out of the wars. That's why they fought the wars.
Yep. All right. Let me bring back the panel. Hold on a second. All right.
And it's interesting. He's been in the news a lot, not the news, but his name has come up a lot lately. Mark Levin and Glenn Beck.
Yep.
And of course, this is all by design. I don't even think that's Mark Levin, but it's a simmering debate, isn't it? That Churchill may have been the instigator of World War II. That's actually being discussed.
Yeah, Tucker actually brought that up. Yeah. I think that was what Levin responded to. And
right. But in so doing, in responding, he's amplifying the debate.
Yep.
I don't believe that's Mark Levin. I think Mark Levin got his just desserts a long time ago because we know he's a Mossad agent.
Mm-hmm. Let's hope so.
Okay, so that's Kalergi and that's Winston Churchill. Okay. It's not Mike King saying this stuff.
It's Mike King teaching us all.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And here's the doozy right here. This is more contemporary times, maybe about, 10 years ago or so. Barbara Lerner Specter, founding director of the European Institute for Jewish Studies. And let's hear what she has to say about multiculturalism and mass migration. This is pure Kalergiism. Okay. Here's the other video I sent.
Yep, gotcha. All right.
As we heard, there are people in Sweden who support Israel and have a deep sense of the injustice of the present situation. It's these people who give hope to those who still believe that things will get better here. One of them is Barbara Specter, a former American who made Aliyah and then 10 years ago, with the help of the government of Sweden, set up a non-denominational institute of Jewish learning with the Greek name of Paideia here in Stockholm. She believes the current wave of anti-Semitism in Sweden will pass and that Jews have an important role to play in a country undergoing profound change.
I think there's a resurgence of anti-Semitism because at this point in time, Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural. And I think we're going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies that they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive.
Paideia.
Wow.
Yeah. Who the hell is she? Who anointed her?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's...
And she's saying that at a time when George Soros was funding the massive boat migrations into Europe. That was their heyday.
Yeah. Europe will not survive without it.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And she openly admits that the Jews quarterbacking this.
No hiding it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And, she doesn't have to hide behind a front man like Churchill or Kalergi. She's telling you straight up, we're playing a leading role here.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So there's the critical historical context to help us better appreciate this policy document that Trump has just signed off on,
which represents a complete reversal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Inversion.
Total inversion. Wow. Brilliant. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and let's pull up this Real News and History website you guys keep hearing me talk about every single week, because it is Mike King's home base, and we like to pause in between segments before we get into the history. Well, not that we haven't discussed history, but the history segment at the end to give Mike an opportunity to talk about his work and to highlight so many of the different projects that he has going on. So this is his website. Mike, why don't you talk a little bit about your books, about your work, your niche, how folks can support you, and your Rumble channel, etc.
Okay, well, this is it. realnewsandhistory.com. Fake history is the fake news that is passed into the rearview mirror. And this is my specialty, as you've seen in our discussions on these last two pieces. Weave together the history to the contemporary times, and so you understand much better the world we live in today, and also appreciate this Q operation, which the more you read about this, the clearer it becomes that this is being dismantled brick by brick. Or actually already has been. We're just waiting for the replay.
Yep.
I feel that I do this in a unique way that is so clear and concise. You don't have to get bogged down in heavy-duty academic research, toiling away for hours studying. It's very, I've got a marketing background, and I bring that to the writing of my books and articles. I keep everything very clear, concise. It's very sticky. You read it once, and it penetrates. Lots of images. I'm a firm believer a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I use tons of images with captions that kind of drive the point home. So I really think you'll enjoy my work. Go to the site, bookmark it. There's a ton of free content, but you really should avail yourself of the books, which come in paperback, but also in PDF format. You can get all 34 of my books in PDF format. That's what I call Mike King University, for a steal, for a song. $29. You'll get all 34 books. Okay.
That's the best deal on the internet, folks. Hands down.
You know how many years of research and extraction of facts this took to put all together? A lot of time, money, expense, all yours for just $29. I did all the hard work for you, and you will be. This will really kind of improve you as a person to have this level of knowledge that you don't have to immerse yourself in years of study for to obtain it.
I honestly don't. If anybody out there has been watching our shows together now for however long, I don't know how anybody could not avail themselves of this deal to get Mike's complete works for $30, for $29. It's just, talk about a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's got everything. You'll understand the whole last 250 years.
Yeah.
So definitely. And if you've already got this, as always, I appreciate your continued support of my work. This is my livelihood, and it's what enables me on a daily basis to keep digging, both in the news and in history. So that's the website. I guess that's the first of the tripod of my operation here.
Yeah.
The other one is the same books in physical format. I have an Amazon page. The author page is Mike King, or Mike S. King. And you'll find most of these also in paperback format, except for some of the World War II stuff. It's too controversial. You have to order that through my site. Okay. But there's my Amazon page, Mike S. King. And these are nice books. Most of these are 8.5 by 11. They're nice coffee table books, really colorful covers, right? And a lot of people are in the process of collecting these little by little. And I priced them very reasonably. You see those three right there, 1, 2, 3. I call those that's the immortal trio right there. They're only like $14 each. If you're new to this, you're new to Mike King, you want to start, I call this one the hook. These are all Crash Course 1-hour reads. Crash Course 9/11 Inside Job. Right? If you're like an activist and you're trying to influence other people, why not start with this? I call it the hook because if you read that, you go to that book, there can be no doubt that the official story of 9/11 was a colossal lie. It's so easy to debunk. Someone who reads that and still clings to the official 9/11 commission, you're just dealing with a totally brainwashed normie. Just move on. But I believe most people will see that and say, oh my God, wow, I want to know more about the people in the networks who did this. Which leads you to Crash Course NWO, 250 years of the cabal history. All of the major events of the last 250 years, pretty much, revolve around this evil network tormenting humanity. And I cover it in 1 hour, large print, lots of pictures. All right. Not going to make you an expert overnight, of course, but it gives you the framework, which is pretty much all you need. And now you'll understand the world we live in thoroughly. But then come, and if you didn't know about this last one, you'd be blackpilled. But then comes the good news. This is the happy ending that we talk about each week, the secret plan to save humanity, the rise of Commander Trump and the Q operation. And it breaks down how they did it, or how they're doing it, how they're dismantling it. Mm-hmm. So those three go very well together. And then the other 30 some odd books, they just enhance everything.
Yep.
Books on World War II, Joe McCarthy, Napoleon, the U.S. Civil War, the climate change hoax, debunking evolution. This one was very popular. And I'm surprised because this is really the only one I wrote that is not so much a news and history book, although elements of it are, believe it or not. The Divine Selfie, which was an analysis of the Shroud of Turin, not from a religious standpoint, but just by the forensics of it. It's mind-boggling. Mm-hmm. This is a photographic image that got on the shroud, a negative. This is not the shroud. This is what happens when you take a picture. It's a negative, meaning the negative is on the shroud itself. It's got real blood stains on it. It's mind-blowing. And when I started to write this, I didn't really think there was a connection to the cabal. I thought I was just going off in a different area. But believe it or not, there is, because there were attempts to debunk the shroud, which were false. They rigged the science, the carbon dating. And there was an attempt to burn the shroud and destroy it. And the suspects were connected to the United Nations. So
yeah, I mean,
everything comes back to this struggle that we talk about.
That's one of the things, the points I wanted to just emphasize too, is that when you read Mike's books,
yeah,
I mean, the three that are on the screen right now, it's pretty obvious what we're talking about, but they're all interconnected. They all basically tell the same story. It's like the same saga. So it's like you can't really separate one of Mike's books and put it into a different category. I mean, I think maybe the Divine Selfie is as close as you can get, but like you just pointed out, this is an ancient spiritual war. So of course they were going to try to do everything they could to destroy the evidence, and the usual suspects, of course. It's amazing how they all complement each other so well, because in essence, it's all part of the same story. And that's what Mike does so well, is he can take all the history and he can connect everything to exactly where we're at right now. And you see the relevance of it. And as you often say, if you're ever bored by history, it's because, you're being fed a bunch of lies. Once you start learning the truth, it's a whole different ballgame.
This stuff blows away Tom Clancy novels. It's exciting. It's riveting. It's suspense, drama, action, but it's real.
Exactly.
And it defines our whole false reality, which we were raised in and steeped in all our life, and many of our friends and family are still stuck in.
Oh, I know.
Hopefully for not too long now.
I hope so.
So
that's that healing process I was hoping for.
Yeah.
But I hope my parents make it to the other side, and
I'm confident they will.
Yeah.
And since we discussed World War II tonight, this was the very first book that I published on Amazon years ago, and it was blowing up on Amazon until the Anti-Defamation League got a hold of it, and they got it holocausted from Amazon. So you want to read my book that you hear me talk about so often, The Bad War. The only way you can get this one is part of the PDF package, but if you want it in physical format, and this is a really handsome book that you should have, you go to realnewsandhistory.com, and on the menu you'll see WW2, and you can order it there, either in book format, and then there's the other piece, companion, The Song That Never Ends, Debunking the Holocaust. I didn't even try to get that one on Amazon. They kind of go together. You can get both at a good deal of $67 for both in the paperback format. So that's the books element of the triangle. And then finally, and you can access this right through my website as well. If you see on the menu tab, it says NWO Cabal Series.
Yep, right here.
Yeah.
I'm going to click on that.
that'll take you. I've got a series that I'm putting together on Rumble. My Rumble channel, very simple, Mike King, you'll find me. And I've just completed episode 32. I'm going decade by decade by decade through the past 2.5, 3 centuries to the modern day, showing you all of the developments and the unmistakable common thread running through, which is the New World Order Cabal. And I call it the rise and fall of the New World Order Cabal because in another couple episodes, we're going to introduce the Trump era. Okay, right now, I just completed a period of time, 1976 to 1983. And so that's how you get access it. Or you could go right through my Rumble channel, Mike King. It's a playlist there. And I do a lot of other videos as well at my Rumble channel, like on Q stuff. There it is, Mike King /realnewsandhistory.com. You just put Mike King in the search engine, you'll find it. And, if you like my discussions here, you will love these videos. They're generally 20 to 30 minutes a piece. Okay. So please, if you're not already doing so, you take a moment, just follow me on Rumble. You have to join Rumble to do that, but that's free, only takes a minute. And this way you'll get a notification every time I got a new video up. Mm-hmm. So there it is, Rumble, Amazon, and the website.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, folks, make sure you're supporting Mike. And again, if I said it at the beginning of the show tonight, but if you're listening to this show and you like what you hear, make sure you take the time to, two things that I really want to stress is, first and foremost, make sure you're following Mike's channel. As you can see, every week is like another 1,000 people. So that's fantastic to see. And my channel's growing too, slow but steady, but it's still growing. And I'm really grateful for that. So if you haven't already followed both of us, please take the time to do that. And also make sure you hit that thumbs up button, because you just you can't really overstate how important that is. It's just in terms of getting this information out to a wider audience. And ultimately, that's what we want to do. That's why Mike does what he does, so that he can reach more people with the truthful information. And the way that the algorithms are set up, that's just the reality. So that the stuff that gets a lot of interaction, gets a lot of likes, a lot of views, etc., it gets boosted and more people are going to see it. So just make sure you take the time to do that and support Mike. He's absolutely incredible at what he does, and there's really nobody else doing it. So,
thank you.
Yeah, kudos to you, my friend, as I say every week. Absolutely. So with that, folks, let's go ahead and, look at that. We're almost at 2 hours here. My goodness. We still got a whole other segment to cover. So I'm going to try to keep my interruptions at a minimum here so Mike can do it.
Oh, I wanted to close. I almost forgot. This relates to that European piece. And again, we're tying back to history with the modern day. And I've been saying this, and I was a lone voice saying this. It was an unpopular opinion in the beginning of the Q days. But now I think more and more people finally understand Hitler's struggle against these people is identical to the Trump and Q struggle. And in 1942, this is after FDR imposed himself into the war, Hitler gave a speech in Berlin, and he closed with this prayer: Lord God, give us the strength that we may retain our liberty for our children and our children's children, not only for ourselves, but also for the other peoples of Europe. For this is a war which we all wage, this time not for our German people alone. It is a war for all of Europe, and with it, in the long run, for all of mankind.
Wow. Yeah.
Is that not the Q operation? And you see how he's saying this, ain't just Germany, is Europe. Mm-hmm. And now you link this to this document from Trump saying that he wants to prevent the civilizational erasure of Europe. And this is exactly what he's talking about.
What we're talking about.
We're waging this war for Europe.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, incredible. Absolutely.
And that's why we're seeing all this drip with the Rogan and the Tucker Carlson and the Candace Owen with the World War II revision. It's intensifying, it seems like, almost every month now. Right?
Yep.
So,
yep.
Boy, have we been lied to, huh?
We sure have. We sure have. Now, I know I said I wouldn't interrupt, but I just have to ask one thing about Hitler, because I'm reading your book, and in the process of reading The Song That Never Ends. I've of course read The Bad War, and when we talk about the Jews, right? We always we have that caveat, like we're not saying all Jews are bad. We're saying that there's a cabal, and so whatever. But one of the things about Hitler that I'm kind of curious about, and you would know, I'm sure, better than anyone, was there any evidence in his writing or his work or in his ideology that in his mind that there was a separation between the ordinary average Jew and the satanic elites that we talk about? Or did he kind of just put them all under one umbrella? Because you've opened up my mind. I'm just going to be honest with you. You've opened up my mind, and you've given me an avenue to look at Hitler in an entirely different way, something that I was very hesitant to do right from the beginning. But one of the stumbling blocks that I have is that I just can't get on board with all Jews are bad, right? So
well, he actually never said that. He actually spoke. He spoke of the doctor, a Jewish doctor who treated his mother once. What a gentleman he was. He says if they were all like him, we would not have this problem. So
interesting. I didn't know that.
It was not like I mean, the intention was, once the war broke out again, the thinking was, this is not going to work out. Let's get them a homeland on Madagascar. We have to separate.
Okay.
How do you, because to a large extent, the lesser Jews who aren't really driving this thing, they're still under the influence of their cabal bosses and their various Jewish Red Communist Party leaders and even rabbis and so on. So it just wasn't a practical thing. What are we going to do? Just separate out the good from the bad? Let's just separate. It's just a small minority, and we'll give them a nice homeland in Madagascar. But the internment, this is critical. It only began once another world war was imposed upon Germany and all the mass death and destruction which it entailed. But he was not like a fanatical blanket, like racist Jewish hater. It was just more of a practical decision that this ain't working out. I mean, there was a couple Jews on the German Olympic team of 1936. There were 500,000 German soldiers who are half Jewish.
Really?
Fought for the Reich. Yeah, half Jewish. So
I'm glad I asked, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
And he even says in Mein Kampf how when he was first learning about the so-called Jewish question, how uncomfortable he felt with it. He thought it was just like bigotry and intolerance and didn't make sense to him. So it's something he grappled with, but he was never like a fanatical, we got to get rid of Jews. You got to understand, too, you got to read things in a proper context. In those days, 20s, 30s, 40s, people didn't use the politically correct language. You read what some of the things Joe Kennedy said, or even in private, FDR and Truman said, So you didn't say, well, not all of them are like that. You just spoke.
Yeah. They didn't have that.
In a different way.
Yeah.
And you read that stuff with today's different sensibilities, comes off as very harsh, okay? But actually not quite as harsh as you would think.
Okay.
Even the repatriation, well, not repatriation, but there was a deal that they struck to get some of the Jewish boycotts off of Germany's back early on. Mm-hmm. To that end, the German government facilitated the emigration of 50,000 Jews from Germany to Palestine, which was under British control. So they facilitated that, and they helped them with that and there was a reason they did that. Is kind of the Zionists started leaning on, hey, we could get some of the pressure off you. You help send these Jews away, and he did.
Okay.
Because on Kristallnacht, when you had this so-called spontaneous vandalism targeting Jewish businesses, they call that Night of the Broken Glass. They're still whining about it 80 years after the fact, and it was very suspicious how it just spontaneously broke out. If you ask me, Kristallnacht was engineered for the purpose of embarrassing Germany. But anyway, this is known from all internal documents that when he learned about the vandalism, he threw a fit. And he called Goebbels up. He says, you got anything to do with this? What the hell's going on? He ordered it stopped immediately.
Really? Oh.
All this vandalism of the Jewish shops. I mean, first of all, he wasn't a barbarian like that, but mainly he knew the whole world was going to condemn him wrongly, which they did. So
what about all the propaganda posters with the big noses and like, you know, the stuff of, you know, like Jews being subhuman and all that stuff? Was that stuff actually real?
Well, again, you have to look at the content. Another war was just imposed upon Germany, which meant millions more people were going to die, and they knew what the Jews around the world were saying about them. So, you know, once you unleash that kind of hatred, right?
It kind of goes
again. It's the context. So it's, but between 1933, when he came to power, and 1939, or really 1941, when the war broke out on the Eastern Front, you didn't see that kind of animosity day after day aimed at the Jews of Germany. In fact, many of their businesses prospered during this time. Nobody bothered them. The only restriction placed on them in the 30s is, you're not going to run our newspapers, you're not going to run our universities or our government. It's only 1% of the population, and they had this enormous influence. But if you want to run your business, like, go ahead. Max Warburg continued to serve on the board of the Reichsbank.
Wow!
Throughout the 30s, nobody bothered him.
So it wasn't
no longer controlled that bank. It was under control of the German government, but nobody bothered Max Warburg. Only when the war broke out, you know, he left the country. So it wasn't like this daily fanatical persecution. That things were worse at 1932-33 when Germany was in a depression, and then he came into power, and all the Jews around the world were condemning him. So then they put a boycott on Jewish businesses in Germany, and basically said, "You tell your co-religionists in the other countries to back off," and they did. So. But you know, these things are tricky. What do you do when you reach a point where you have to have a divorce? You know, how do you distinguish between who's a Jewish communist who's against you and who's Jewish non-political? You know.
Well, it's just like, I mean, and I'm glad you're saying that about the context, because you know, pretty much everybody inside of our community, even people who are you know, who've written books about this stuff, like yourself, you're not advocating that, oh, you know, we should just take all the Jews and just, like, you know, put them on some island or something, or you're not painting everybody with that same broad brush of like, you know, if you're a Jew, you're bad. You don't do that. I don't do that. And I, you know, for the most part, I don't really hear that much sentiment of that, but that's when you look back through that historical lens, oftentimes that's the way it seems. Like, that's the way it appears, is that there's just this blanket hatred of all Jews. But you're saying that,
you got to look at the context here, and that is for the 50-year run-up up until the post-World War I period, there was no problem for the Jews in Germany. In fact, when World War I first broke out, many of the Jews in the United States were rooting for Germany. Okay? So now you got to ask yourself, what happened? You had this relationship, no problem. And then all of a sudden, after World War I, this breaks out, so-called anti-Semitism. So things have to be judged in the context of the betrayal of Germany, which caused them to lose World War I, the post-war mega inflation, and then the depression and the corruption of Berlin and mass suicides and prostitution and pedophilia, and now another world war imposed upon Germany. So in that context, you know, people get a little emotional and they say shit.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to like kind of read it and say, oh, that's not nice. You shouldn't say that. But you ought to read some of the stuff the Jews were saying about Germany too. So,
right.
Yeah,
no, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's important to understand that you cannot exaggerate the degree of suffering that was imposed upon the German people, including World War I and then the post-World War I period, all the way up until the 1930s. And at the forefront of that with the Jewish cabal, Jewish organizations, Jewish Communist Party. Yes, they were not all involved in that, but a significant amount were. And perhaps not enough were speaking out against those either. So, you have an obligation to do that too. So it's easy to make judgment. We never went through hyperinflation and mass genocide and starvation, things like that. So in that context, when
that makes a lot of sense.
People speak a little bit harshly with their language, context is everything.
Well, I'm glad that I asked you that. I know it caused a little diversion here, but I think it's important to distinguish between the historical context and the ideology of the man, right? That he wasn't necessarily saying that we just have to, we have to rid ourselves of all Jews because all Jews are inherently bad. It was a mixture of everything that you just laid out. And in our modern context, we have much more of an ability, I think, to separate those things. Like we can see clearly that we're dealing with a sect within Judaism that is satanic, but that doesn't represent the entirety of, Jewish people around the world. So, okay. Well, thanks for indulging me on that, Mike. All right. So now I'm going to shut up.
In many ways, Judaism and Marxism in those days was almost intertwined.
Say that again.
I said in those days, Judaism and Marxism was almost intertwined. It was such a fundamental part of the Jewish political leaning. So that's the main problem, that so many of them were like Marxist.
Yeah.
But, if he's that much a fanatic, he would not have allowed 500,000 half-Jews to fight in the German military, some of them with great distinction. So, moving right along.
All right.
Speaking of Jewish media power, this piece is about the Newhouse family. That has to be, you can only describe as one of the most powerful media families in American history. And what's wild is how many people know this name. Not too many people know the name of the Sulzbergers, who have owned the Times for 130 years. But even relative to the Newhouses, the Sulzbergers are downright famous. And what's interesting, I dug up, this is like a combination, amalgamation of some old headlines. October 1983. Newhouse's Private Empire is the headline. Another article, 1985. An intensely private family enterprise. And then there's stories about how they bought. And they're always described as very, very highly private. So generally, these characters operate in the shadows, but with the Newhouses, it's really deep, the shadows. And it's just kind of passed on to their children and grandchildren. They would just run their operations. And for them, anonymity is just a blanket.
Yep.
Condé Nast owners, the Newhouse family, set to reap $1.4 billion windfall from Reddit. So they bought Reddit, they bought Condé Nast. Those all the articles there is about buying the New Yorker. They just gobble up so many different newspapers, cable stations, radio state media over a year. Collectively, it reaches an enormous audience, and nobody knows who's behind it.
All by design, of course.
Yeah. So let's learn a little more about the Newhouses here.
Okay.
The name of their company is Advanced Publications, and it was established in 1922 by an ex-rabbinical student named Solomon Sam Isidore Newhouse. And he later is joined by his brothers Norman and Theodore Newhouse. So that's 1922. So again, this is a century-old institution. The Sulzbergers, 130 years. The Rothschilds, 250 years. So you put all this together, you see the continuity of this thing. It's not so crazy anymore when we talk about the New World Order conspiracy as a quarter millennium old. All right. In terms of raw media power, the Newhouse clan ranked only a notch below that of the Jewish Sulzbergers. And the fact that their name, much like that of the Sulzbergers, doesn't ring a bell with at least 95% of the general public, probably more, is further evidence of the awesome scope of this dynasty's hidden power. And this is the New York Times itself calling it that. So you imagine like the Sulzberger family calling the Newhouse family intensely private. Neither one is known, but these people are really unknown. Private empire, intensely private family. Okay, so let's learn a little more about them. Next panel here. Now, these are two of the brothers, Norman Newhouse and Theodore Newhouse, who later on joined the main founder, who was Solomon, who was the true patriarch. But his brothers were key partners in this advanced publications. And if we go down a notch below, we're going to meet Solomon, also known as Sam. Time magazine cover boy, of course. That's probably the most coverage he ever got. He probably hated that.
It's seldom a week where we don't have a Time magazine cover on the page.
Yeah. Well, it kind of drives home the point of a big person.
Mm-hmm.
And you know my rule: if it's a flattering cover story, the person 99 out of 100 times is a villain, and conversely, if it's a disparaging cover story, the person is defying the globalists in one way or another. Yep. And so in the second image, there you see an older Sam Newhouse with his two sons that he passed down the operation to. And then the other brothers had sons too. So they branched off, kind of like the Rothschilds. And everyone's got their own newspapers. Mm-hmm. I guess you get like a newspaper on your birthday or something. So that's Sam Jr. on the left and Donald Newhouse on the right. I guess that picture is probably taken in the 60s or 70s.
Yeah. Okay.
So by this time, they're huge. And I think a large part of the reason why they're not well known is because they generally don't own flagship newspapers in major American cities. It's almost like second-tier cities. Big enough cities, but not really your New York or your Chicago or your LA or your DC.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is in the heartland where you never suspect, or in Dixie.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's
flyover country. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of where they targeted their operation.
Right. And maybe that has a lot to do why they're so private, because they would stand out too much in certain parts of the country. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
So you had the Sulzbergers that were covering New York and
New York, and then all the other papers that feed off of the New York.
Feed off of that, right?
Eugene Meyer had the Washington Post. Okay.
Yeah, and these guys kind of filled in all the gaps across.
Yeah, lower level cities, mid level cities, cable stations. Okay. But all they penetrated the heartland and the South. That's what was really insidious about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And we're going to review some of their holdings here. Just a few, because if we get into all of them, I'll never get done. At the time of his death in 1979, the patriarch Sam Newhouse owned the third largest newspaper chain in the United States. In addition to his 31 newspapers, he owned 7 magazines, 5 radio stations, 6 television stations, 15 cable TV stations, and then advanced publications was passed down to those two boys, his two sons. And then they took it to another level. They then acquired Vogue magazine and Teen Vogue, which is filthy, by the way. Teen Vogue is just full of sexual stuff. Okay. Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, Architectural Digest, Self, Wired, Glamour, W, Condé Nast, Parade magazine, Gentleman's Quarterly, I said Vogue, Mademoiselle, Brides, and Gourmet, among many other lesser known ones. I mean, stuff like Gourmet, that's nothing nefarious there. But a lot of these magazines, they get the propaganda in there. So it's not just news, it's also cultural influence that they're wielding. And Mademoiselle and Teen Vogue were targeted at young women. And just the content in there, you see what they're trying to do to the young women. Okay. Yeah. The newspaper element included dozens of pinko newspapers across the United States, the largest one being the Star Ledger in New Jersey, which is Newark. And again, Newark, biggest city in New Jersey, but you wouldn't rank it. I don't even think it's one of the top 20 in the United States. So it's more of a second-tier city. And that's the biggest that they had. Nothing in Chicago or LA or Houston or Philadelphia. You understand? Mm-hmm. Cable holdings include Bright House Networks. For a while, they owned Random House Publishing, and then they later sold it. And they held a controlling stake in Discovery Communications. So you add this up, they're reaching a whole lot of people.
Yep. Sure did. Yeah. And I actually just saw that I think it's Time Warner Discovery is being sold to Netflix. Do you see that one?
Yeah.
Better hope the White Hats are in control of that.
I think they are. I
know.
Are. Yeah.
I think so too. Because it was, what was that guy's name? A Trump supporter who ended up buying out Discovery Plus, and he took over a big swath of that, but now it's, I can't remember the guy's name, but.
Well, let's hope in due time that Trump Media Group, which was formed for the purpose of acquisitions, starts acquiring, and I think they will, because
if they haven't already.
Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't already.
All right. So there's a Star Ledger of Newark, the Times of Trenton, New Jersey, the Staten Island Advance. And again, Staten Island, I mean, it's one of New York City's boroughs, but it's always been the outlier. It's been the conservative borough, conservative, white, middle-class borough of New York.
Yep.
But they bought the Advance, the Staten Island Advance. So they seem to go into these markets, which are middle of the road or conservative, and make their impact.
Yep.
The Portland Oregonian, the Cleveland Plain Dealer, the New Orleans Times-Picayune, and also the New Orleans Advocate. And I remember David Duke used to tell the story when he was like a teenager. And him and his father, they noticed, hey, boy, what's up with the Picayune all of a sudden? They're getting left wing. This is the heart of Dixie. And this paper's starting to take a leftward bent. Mm-hmm. Well, the Newhouse family bought it. Okay, so this is their niche. Let's penetrate the heartland and Dixie with our leftist propaganda.
Yeah,
in a subtle way. Mm-hmm. The Jersey Journal, that's Jersey City. So that three publications. So Staten Island, Newark, Trenton, and Jersey City. So they had a nice little base operation, New York, New Jersey. But then they branched out across the country. The Huntsville Times, Huntsville, Alabama. What's up with that? You would not expect that down in Alabama, in the deep South. But again, you see this had to be done deliberately. This is our niche. We're going to go into the conservative heartland and begin changing the editorial policy. Uh-huh. And this is back in the days when newspapers are king. Now, all of these publications have lost influence, not necessarily because of the operation, just because the way the times have changed. People now have so many different sources in the internet.
Right.
But in these days, your local newspaper was king.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, now everybody goes to X to get the news.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, I don't know if you're going to get to this, Mike, but was the Newhouse family directly connected to the Rothschilds, or?
I don't see any direct connection, but they are just yet another Jewish billionaire family that bought up a shitload of media sources.
Gotcha.
And that was happening in Germany too, and it happened in Britain, it happened in France, it happened in the United States. Yep. So clearly they're part of the cabal.
Part of the cabal, of course.
Or along the periphery of it. Ann Arbor, Michigan. The Ann Arbor News, the Post-Standard of Syracuse, New York. Now that's upstate New York. Upstate, way up there. Much more conservative grounds than, say, like, Manhattan, right? But there they are. Yeah. Birmingham, Alabama, the Birmingham News. The Patriot News of Central Pennsylvania. And there's more. So this was their niche. Let's penetrate the heartland. Promoting fake news and moral depravity. That's what these satanic scumbags were all about. And only one man out of 100 or so knows the actual names of these shady characters, this intensely private family. And I used to read the Newark Star Ledger, consistently back when newspapers. You get newspapers because they used to have the circulars and that stuff. But it was horrible, just as bad as the New York Times. I'm sure all of these newspapers were, although probably in Dixie and in the heartland, they tread a little bit more carefully, right? Yeah. But all of these papers put out the liberal poison.
Were they successful financially? Because the reason I ask is because you got to wonder if, people who live in these conservative areas like Alabama, for example, and all of a sudden they're reading this, this left-wing propaganda, did it?
Well, from the way David Duke described it, they were subtle in their left-wing bent because you got to know your market.
Right.
And in fact, if you read the New York Times, old issues of the New York Times, because I have access to the archives, you go back to the 20s, 30s, 40s, even 50s.
There's a lot more.
And it would be, relatively speaking, compared to today, you'd almost say it's downright conservative.
Right.
Nonetheless, if you're astute and you know what to look for and you know the tricks, they were putting the poison pills in there. Mm-hmm. You just did it. You have a cat. You ever give your cat medicine, right? You got to put it inside a little treat in the pill so he doesn't know. Yeah. So that's the way David Duke described the New Orleans Picayune. It wasn't like you pick up the paper one day and it's workers of the world unite. No, but the subtle stuff is in there. So that's how they operate. Because you're right. If they went too far in markets like this, their circulation would plummet.
Right. Yeah.
But that's how they operate.
Yeah. Very shrewd.
Yeah.
Very shrewd.
And again, the receipts. I love quoting the adversary. Make my case for me. Norman Newhouse said this in 1985. We, meaning his family, we never went in for titles. We are basically anonymous people. If I were to walk into a room in New Orleans with the 100 most prominent people in town, there may be 2 who would know me personally. Most would probably know the name and the connection, but they wouldn't know me personally or recognize me by my face because my public position is non-existent. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it's not just one of them, it's all of them. It's like really embedded in their family. Lay low. Yeah. And I think it's because of this, because their specialty was to penetrate the heartland, not so much the major urban areas. Lay low. We don't need people knowing that, this is Jewish cabal down in Dixie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had to fly under the radar for obvious reasons, but it's amazing that the long-term strategy though of just chipping away at the ideology, putting the poison pills in there, the propaganda, and because sometimes I like on election night, for example, you look at some southern states and certain areas that went blue, and obviously we know about election theft and in the urban areas, there's going to be a lot more of that stuff. But I would just scratch my head and say, really, there's actually people in Tennessee and Alabama and Mississippi that are voting for Democrats. Like what? But
some of those are northern refugees. There's been this problem now for years of these libtards actually flee the northern states to get away from the oppressive taxation.
Yeah,
and then they show up in the heartland. And they start voting for the same policies that they fled. They don't realize it. So some of that is due to that.
Yeah.
The younger generation, they're picking some of those off. Immigration, and then also voter fraud. But even the South and the heartland, at least before Trump came along, now it seems to solidify a little more. They were beginning to fray.
Yeah.
And the Democrats spoke open about that. We want to turn North Carolina and Texas into blue states, and they were on their way.
Yeah. Well, they made some pretty big inroads. You see some of these areas in the Carolinas, and I mean places that you would think to yourself, nobody's voting for Democrats down there. But they definitely they spread their cancer pretty effectively.
Yeah.
But here we go. So all right, well, another great presentation from Mike King. Thank you so much, Mike. I do appreciate it. I know that the audience does as well. And here we are at the end. Well, not quite at the end of December, but we're about to embark on another year. It's going to be quite a wild ride. But well, I actually had a couple of questions on that, but I think maybe I'll save it because we're already way above way beyond our time. We'll save that for another time as far as next year and what we're likely to see. But in closing tonight, Mike, I always ask you, what are you working on now? Do you have another article coming out?
Just going to proofread it, send it out tonight. Kind of connected to one of the things we spoke about tonight. Marjorie Taylor Greene was just on 60 Minutes.
Again, yeah.
What's up with that?
Was she on there before, or was that her first time?
She was on, I think she was on last year, maybe 2 years ago. Or
okay.
Recently she was on The View, but now she's on 60 Minutes again, talking about her her breakup with Donald Trump over Epstein.
Yep.
60 Minutes is totally under control of the way that operation.
I saw a clip of that where she's saying that Trump is, and this is really the optically, this is the central battle right now within the MAGA movement.
Yeah.
Basically, you've got people saying that Trump has abandoned his America First base. He's, he's lining the pockets of all the, the power players and more or less turning his back on everybody. And she's kind of amplifying that narrative for that reason. But,
it means a counterpunch is coming. That's what that all means.
Yep. Get ready. Get ready for it. All right, folks. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Do us a favor. Once again, hit that like button. If you did, let us know in the comments what you thought about it. And later in the week, I'm going to be hosting Mark and Dave from News Treason on Thursday. And I think I have something else. Oh, yeah. I'm going to be doing a show with the guys, Joe and Scott from Truth Stream on Saturday. So stay tuned. I will be back soon. And of course, I'll be back next week with the one and only Mike King. But until then, folks, thank you for listening. God bless. Godspeed, everybody. Patriot out.
Thank you.